I find myself in a rather complicated situation regarding my sister-in-law and the name we chose for our baby. To provide some context, I am a 33-year-old woman married to my husband Kevin, who is 35. We have a 3-year-old daughter and are currently expecting twins. My brother-in-law, Terrence, is married to Jess, who is quite different from me in personality. While I tend to be more reserved and observant, Jess is extroverted and often comes across as loud and somewhat abrasive. Despite our differences, we have maintained a cordial relationship, though we have never truly connected on a deeper level. Recently, Jess and Terrence welcomed their first child after facing fertility challenges for several years. During my pregnancy with my daughter, Jess exhibited some peculiar behavior, oscillating between indifference and eagerness regarding my pregnancy. This included her insistence on knowing the name we had chosen for our daughter, which we kept private. Her persistent inquiries and visible frustration when we declined to share the name left us puzzled, especially since she was not expecting at that time. We attributed her behavior to her own struggles with fertility, but it still felt intrusive. Now, with the arrival of our twins approaching, I can't help but feel a sense of unease about Jess's previous insistence on our daughter's name. It seems that her interest may have stemmed from a desire to claim a name for her own child, which has led me to question whether I inadvertently tricked her into revealing her intentions. While I never intended to create any conflict, I am left wondering if my actions were justified or if I have crossed a line in this delicate family dynamic. When our daughter was born and we finally revealed her name, Jess seemed to develop an unusual fascination with it. It's difficult to articulate, but she continuously expressed her admiration for how beautiful and distinctive she found the name. Even now, she frequently remarks on its uniqueness. The name we selected is a fairly common Welsh name, which might not stand out much, except for the fact that we are African American. I have always been drawn to names from various cultures and had discovered this particular name years ago, keeping it to myself until Kevin came into the picture. As fate would have it, both of us ended up expecting at the same time. Jess's peculiar behavior towards me became more pronounced during this period. She made snide remarks disguised as jokes about how I would struggle with my body after having 2 babies, suggesting that I wouldn't bounce back as I did after our daughter. To add to the tension, she insinuated that we had planned our pregnancy to coincide with hers, despite the fact that our family was aware of our efforts to conceive. At that time, I was already a few weeks pregnant myself, though I had not yet discovered it. I have always been someone who stands up for myself, regardless of my introverted nature, but I opted to overlook Jess's comments, knowing that ignoring her would likely frustrate her more than any confrontation. Although Jess was clearly further along in her pregnancy, we managed to hold our gender reveal before she gave birth. As anticipated, the inquiries about baby names began anew. Since Jess and her partner chose not to learn their baby's gender ahead of time, she relentlessly pressed us for the names we had already decided upon. However, we remained firm in our decision to keep that information private, much to her chagrin. After several days of contemplation, I found myself feeling quite frustrated and decided to inquire with Kevin about Jess's persistent behavior. I wondered aloud if her insistence on certain names was motivated by a desire to claim them first, given that her due date was approaching before ours. Initially, Kevin chuckled at the thought, but upon realizing my seriousness, he acknowledged that while he didn't believe that was the case, anything was indeed possible. This prompted me to suggest a little experiment to test the waters. With my father-in-law's birthday party approaching, I devised a plan to leave a subtle hint in the unfinished nursery. I placed a note featuring the names Aria Rose and Sebastian Ollie, which we liked but were not considering for our child, to see if Jess would take the bait and investigate. Kevin, finding the idea amusing, even offered me $20 if she did snoop around. I went online to create custom name wall decals, but ultimately, I printed the order and tucked it away in a dresser drawer without completing the purchase. The birthday party unfolded without a hitch, and due to our hosting duties, we didn't notice if Jess had wandered off for any length of time. The following morning, when I checked the nursery, everything appeared undisturbed, and the order sheet remained exactly where I had left it. We both shrugged it off, but I did observe that Jess never brought up the names again. When Jess eventually gave birth, we visited the hospital to congratulate her, and upon seeing the baby, I asked for his name. To my astonishment, Jess beamed with pride as she announced, Sebastian Ali, displaying a level of satisfaction that was both surprising and somewhat vindictive, a look I had never seen from her in all the years I had known her. The reaction I delivered was far from what she anticipated. It was as if I had just stepped off the stage of a prestigious drama school. "Oh my goodness, what a wonderful name. He's absolutely adorable, just look at that little face. I adore him already. Welcome to the world, Sebastian. Auntie is going to spoil you beyond belief." I was laying it on quite thick, completely unfazed by the situation. In a matter of seconds, Jess's expression transformed from shock to confusion and then to outright anger, all while my husband struggled to contain his laughter. As we bid our farewells, he discreetly slipped me a 20 in the elevator, nearly in tears from laughing. My only response was, just as I expected. It has been 2 weeks since that encounter, and we have chosen to give Jess and her family some space to adjust to their new addition. My mother-in-law mentioned that Jess doesn't seem to be embracing motherhood as enthusiastically as one might expect, especially given the challenges they faced in conceiving. She speculated that it could simply be the baby blues. However, I can't help but think that Jess might be feeling disheartened that her attempt to provoke a reaction from us fell flat. I shared this incident with my sister, who found it amusing at first but later suggested that my actions might have been somewhat inconsiderate. So, am I in the wrong here? In response to those curious about my daughter's name, I previously mentioned it in the comments, but will reiterate it here for clarity. Her name is Karis, which I also borrowed from the names of Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones. I find it to be a beautiful name that deserves more recognition and use among parents.
Thank you for watching. Let us know what you feel about the story. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that could become your next favorite.